Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Music of the Week. As always, I have 6 albums to go through, so I'm going to go through 6 albums now. We begin with The Armed and their new album, The Future Is Here and Everything Needs to Be Destroyed. Now, I've covered them before, and they're not really a band, they're an anonymous bunch of people who have had people in like a lot of American punk circles work with them. And I'm giving it a B. I think it's got some really good stuff to it. I actually quite like the lyrics. There's really good themes about being angry at how passionate the world is against today's issues. In a way that actually really fits how angry the sound is. By the way, quite like the riffs. Really good and heavy stuff. The drumming is probably the best thing on here. I like that there's good keyboard work, but there's also good scratchiness to the guitar, which I probably appreciate. I think the production can try a bit hard to juggle too many things, and it does try and keep things organic, but it does feel like it's trying a bit too hard to keep up with way too much that's happening anyway. And, structure did need a bit of work. Like, this is a problem I have with a fair few albums in this episode, by the way. Quite a lot of the albums are quite short. Like 4 of the 6 I'm doing are just around half an hour, and 3 of those are underneath half an hour. This is 32 minutes 16 seconds, just to clarify. I want this to give itself a bit more time to mix the things up. Maybe some songs should have been a bit longer, and it needed more payoffs than it has, and yeah, I guess band work is pretty good. Again, I literally don't know who's in it because there's no evidence pointing at who's in it, but it's alright. Everyone does a really good job, and that's sort of all you need for a really good post-hardcore, weird experimental sort of rock album. I do think the experimental stuff should work better with the core sound than it does, especially because post-hardcore can lean itself to good experimentation, and that is something that this band needs to work on. But I don't think they'll get there with like a rotating bunch of people. I don't know. Like, it's still good, but they do need to iron this stuff out a little bit more. I do prefer this over the previous album as well, so I still recommend giving it a spin. Next up, we have Fit for a King with their new album, Lonely Gods. I would argue that this is probably the band that people have actually heard of when it comes to this video. I'm giving this one a B because it feels like a Fit for a King album, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but like this is always for as long as I've been listening to them, which isn't very, but I've heard a few of their albums now, it does feel like they're a band that are kind of afraid to step outside their comfort zone. And it's weird because, this was released through Solid State, produced by Daniel Braunstein. I think this is their first time working with them. Another first is that it's the first time where all the band members have written songs. They've had a stable lineup for a little while now, I believe. But man, it just feels like everything that metalcore is usually. But Fit for a King's brand of it is still really good. I quite like the performances. I think everyone getting a chance to write gives them a bit more chemistry, and I like that that actually feels like the main highlight of the album. It's just nice to have everyone working on stuff. I mean, Ryan Kirby is still a really good vocalist, but I'm not really going to pick a stand at it because everyone's proper good. I like the lyrics because there's good themes of ego and disconnection from belief and survival. Not in a positive way either, which actually works, but holy hell, no pun intended, with an album named Lonely God, I really wanted them to make a concept album. It would be so interesting because, like, Fit for a King is seen as, like, sort of Christian metalcore, and I sort of feel like a band doing an album about their relationship with God and its, like, deterioration, because that's one of the themes of the album, that could have made for an interesting concept. And I'm so annoyed that the band didn't go for it. The instrumentation is pretty solid, good guitar work, good drumming, good timing. It feels pretty basic and simple, but in a way that just about works. I could say the same about basing again. Not much new, but decent build, well, pretty good build-ups and payoffs, and a solid enough song flow. I do feel like it does try to experiment a little bit more with some things, but at its core, it does feel like a Fit for a King album. I also quite enjoy the production. It can feel a little bit too clean for my liking, but it's got a really tight scope with a nice sound focus, and actually quite like that is something that I stick to. But yeah, this is a band that don't seem to be in a particular hurry to step out of the comfort zone, and it's weird as well because this is their first album in 3 years. This is, I think, the longest gap that they've had between albums. But I did still enjoy it, but like, it's a trick that a pony can only do so many times, And yeah, Fit for a King are a good metalcore band, and Sentient is a really good song. I would say it's my favorite song on the album. Got some good guest spots, but like, the band really needs to cash in more, because that's always been sort of like the thing that I've found to be their biggest weakness, is they don't capitalize enough. But I would still say it's pretty good if you want some, solidly basic metalcore that works. I would recommend giving it a go. Next we have Morgan Wade with Party's Over Recovered. Now this is an interesting one because technically most of the, well, about half of the songs are covers of songs she did for her debut album. But I didn't listen to that debut album. My first album was the one after that. It was I think my first album was Reckless. I think. Again, I'll correct that. I will give this a B plus though. I thought it was really good. Morgan's performance is still really good. Her emotions on point, and the lyrics actually cover like stuff from before she even put out her first album, which is weird because again, some of the songs from that first album have been reworked into songs from here. But I think that's intentional because it goes through themes of her relationship and more importantly addiction trouble. She's been 8 years sober now, so that's really good. But like, I like that she wasn't afraid to bring those things to the forefront. But again, I do wish songs weren't the do-overs. But again, I didn't listen to the songs originally because I wasn't as into sort of country music as I am now. So, fuck it. I like the instrumentation a lot. It's got some really good rock feels to it, and it's a bit heavier in terms of that. And I like more usage of the keyboard, which I think might be the name of a bird, I'm not sure. But it adds a lot of nice colour to the sound, and the production makes it pop nicely as well. It's got a really good mix, very organic feel, really good flow to that, and structure I did quite enjoy for basically the same reason as the lyrics. I did want it to admittedly mix things up more, much like her last album did, which I didn't give a full review. That was relegated to a catch-up, but it was one of my favourite albums of 2024, so hoo-ah. But, this is still fun, and it finds really good ways to fill the time. So overall, it's still a really solid album, although, considering that this is her third album in as many years, and weirdly, all of those have come out in August. Like, this and her previous two albums all came out in August of, like, in reverse order, 2025, 2024, 2023. Like, can she take a break now? I think she should, but, still really good stuff, and I'm glad that she felt brave enough to even put this album out, so I will give her props for that at the very least. Next we have OK Cool with their new album Chit Chat, and this is the first of a trilogy of albums that I'm going to be covering, which are under half an hour. This album is specifically being 27 minutes and 55 seconds. Again, time varies depending on what site you're looking at, but, I just usually go for Spotify in terms of that. So, yeah, anyway, this is some really good indie rock from Chicago. Not a place I'm used to hearing indie rock from. I'm going to want a B+. I felt like it was just a warm and fuzzy album. There's really good themes, lyrical themes about self-doubt and relationships, but the writing has a really, sort of earnest vibe to it, which I quite enjoyed, and there's only two band members as well. I do have them written down. Bridget Stebris and Haley Blomqvist-Waller. I'm probably not pronouncing their names correctly. But, the two girls absolutely kill it. They have amazing chemistry together, and I don't know who sings what and when, but they're both proper good. I think one plays guitar and the other plays bass, which means they either had a session drummer or had to play it themselves, but they don't typically play drums. Which is not a knock against them, because the drumming is really good too, but it is the guitar and bass that do feel like the forefront, and for good reason. It works. Production really fits the vibe as well, and I like the honesty that the mix has. It adds to the weirdly comfy feeling that the album has. And the instrumentation, really solid. I like the band chemistry. I think if there's one slight against it is the structuring. It's good, and I don't mind that it's a short album, but there's only 10 songs, and a lot of them, especially in the back end of the album, cut short really bloody quick. I feel like there's, not the typical verse, chorus, bridge, last chorus thing. It really feels like verse, chorus, verse, end. And it's just not something my head can get used to. I'm not averse to a weird bit of structuring, but it just needed a bit more to it. And in the back half of the album, it's especially noticeable on the last two songs. It's very weird. It's a very weird pacing choice, but I like pretty much everything else about the album, and I recommend giving these guys a go. They're still early into their career. This is only the second album, so go for them. Next, we have a band called Quam, with their new album Girls Aren't Afraid of Blood. I have no clue if I'm pronouncing it right. It's QWAM and it's all in capitals, and the only thing I could find According to like a Wikipedia sort of like wiki quote thing, there's like this Wikipedia language thing site. I don't remember the fucking name of it, but like the only thing I could find was an accusatory Northern English term for the word whom. That aside, I'm giving it an A. I would say that it's easily my favourite album of the past weekend. Performances are really great as well. There's really good band chemistry from everybody, and lead singer Felicia Lobo, and I really hope that that's her actual surname, because that's fucking sick. Is really good singer. I like when she leans into sort of like a sort of raspier vocal. This is an indie punk band, by the way, with focus on the punk side, I forgot to mention. But yeah, really good stuff there. Really good timing on the riffs too. I like that there's a punk energy mixed with good indie timing, and it's a style that like okay, they don't mix it up a whole ton. I would say maybe that like that might be the main thing I have against it. It's got good bones and energy, but again, it feels a bit too short, and I feel like again the back half of the album needed a bit more time to flesh out because this also has 10 songs and it's 26 minutes 56 seconds long. I think it's the shortest album of the past weekend. I did check and I was correct, but let's focus on the album and specifically the lyrics. Holy hell, they might be my favourite thing on this album. There's really honest writing about themes of survival and identity, inspired by Felicia's dealings with body dysmorphia, New York City being a really crappy place to live, because this band is from Brooklyn, I believe. Let me check. Yes, they are. I was right. Go me. And, the fear of outliving your dreams. So, really happy stuff. But it's all well and good, and there's some awesome riffs as well. As much as I like the guitar work, though, it is the rhythm section that stands out the most to me. There's a really good punchiness to the bass and the drum work, but especially the bass. I like a good punk album that has good bass. People know this about me, and we need a bit more of it because I don't think we've had a lot of it in 2025. I like the production. It's a weirdly smooth album, but it's not something that goes against the sound. It actually has that natural rough feel as well that makes it bright without being overly sparkly. And it's a really difficult balance to maintain, excuse my hair. But yeah, all in all, really good stuff and really dark in places, sure. But like, this is a band still quite early into their career. No debuts in this episode, by the way. I should mention no debuts. I did have to double check that this wasn't one, because this is Qualm's first album in 6 years, and I didn't listen to the previous one. So, maybe you should listen to this one, because I like it when I get into a band early into their career, and even though it was a while between albums, I still feel like this is a really good jumping on point, so I recommend you jump on if you're vaguely interested in it. And finally, we have Suicide Boys with their new album, Thy Kingdom Come. Now, I'm 80% sure I've done an actual episode on one of their albums before, and I think everything since then might have been relegated to a catch-up of some sort. I'm not sure. I'm still giving this one a B+. I thought it was proper good stuff. I like the writing, first of all. There's really good focus on like bars and just really tight lyrical flow. However, I couldn't find bugger all on themes. I think because of the album cover and the album title, I was thinking something maybe to do with religion, maybe, but this isn't a particularly religious band. Well, they're not labeled as like Christian, but they might believe in God. But like, couldn't really find anything, so it's just really fun braggadocio, and it can work in some cases, and it works for these guys. Speaking of the two members, Scream and Ruby DeCherry, interesting names, who are cousins, I believe, or brothers or something, have really good chemistry and tons of energy, and that actually bleeds into the sound quite nicely too. The structure itself has a really good main sound and a really good flow. It did need longer songs because, again, albums under half an hour, 29 minutes and 2 seconds to be exact. And it can blur a little bit at times, but it's still got some really good highlights to it, and I like the energy and the more sort of like punk and trappy beats, specifically the punk beats. They are listed as sort of punk rap. I just call them hip hop in my review. Well, I call them rap, but like they're sort of identified as punk rap and trap and like emo / SoundCloud. So yeah, you can add that in, but I like the punk focus is my main point. Production's pretty good as well, but Dwyer produced it, and I like the sort of southern feel, which makes sense because the band are from New Orleans. But it adds a nice layer to the sound that I wish was done more. In fact, I could have wanted to just go full southern punk rap on the next album, with a more southern twist, and I quite like the beats as well. There's a good scratchy feel that adds a really good energy to it, and it adds a really fun vibe as well. There's just really good work on the beats, there's really good work on the sound, and there's really good work on the album. Again, I do think that this is band, from what I've heard, they need to just put together like a bit more cohesion into stuff, but they do have an energy and a good chemistry and just a really good knowledge of like this type of rap, so I recommend giving it a go. Next is favourite album cover and favourite song. Both kind of difficult. We had some banger covers and banger songs, but I think they might both go to the same album, that being Fit for a King's new album. I really like that there's just like black and red, but it makes this interesting contrast and it makes it look like a really cool comic cover, which means it just annoys me a little bit more that it wasn't a concept album because it looks like the cover for a concept album, but also quite works. And the song Sentient from the album is probably my favourite. Close second is Local Millionaire from the Arms album. That is also really good, but I like the sort of I just like the breakdown in Sentient, and it's got a really good ending to it as well, so it does give it the edge. But again, listen to all this stuff if you want, if you have the time. It's good. And next up, I'm going to go through my albums I'm going to be listening to next week, as always subject to change, but let's go through them anyway. We have Anamanaguchi, I hope I'm saying that correctly, with Anyway, As December Falls with Everything's on Fire But I'm Fine, Attack Attack with Attack Attack 2, Baby Metal with Metal 4th, Black Braid with Black Braid 3, and Good Charlotte with Motel du Cap. And that'll about do it for me. I'll see you all tomorrow for PBW vs AVW, and then presumably on Saturday for more Yakuza Like a Dragon. So, yeah, that's basically it. As always, thank you for watching. You're awesome. My elbow cracked a little bit there. Bye bye.